Something feels off. Not dramatic, not obvious, just wrong enough to notice. You wake up and carry it with you, a quiet tension, a low-level irritation, a sense that you're slightly behind your own life. You might tell yourself you're tired or unmotivated or losing something you used to have, but none of those explanations really settle. They don't quite fit, because on the outside, things may look fine. You're functioning, you're responding, you're showing up. Yet underneath that, there's a steady hum. Too much noise, too many thoughts, too many small demands pulling at you all day. And eventually the question starts forming, not loudly, but persistently. What's wrong with me? Stay here for a moment. There's a reason this feels familiar, and it isn't because you're broken. This state you're in is more common than it feels, and that matters, because when something feels isolating, the mind turns inward. It assumes fault. It assumes deficiency. But many people are quietly carrying this same weight. They're not collapsing. They're not panicking. They're just worn down in a way that doesn't have a clear story. Modern life asks for attention constantly, not in one overwhelming wave, but in thousands of small interruptions, messages, decisions, noise, expectations. Over time, your system adapts, it tightens, it stays alert longer than it should. And instead of calling that what it is, people often turn on themselves. They call it laziness, they call it weakness, they call it being off. There's no failure in responding to too much input. There's no flaw in feeling dulled after being overstretched. Nothing about this makes you abnormal. It makes you human. You don't need to fix anything yet. Just let that land. Overstimulation doesn't usually announce itself loudly. It doesn't always look like panic or chaos or breaking down. Most of the time, it arrives quietly. It shows up as a mind that never fully rests. Even in silence, even when you're alone, thoughts stack on top of each other. Not urgent, just constant. You might notice a thinning of patience. Small things feel heavier than they should. Decisions feel strangely difficult, not because they matter so much, but because your system is already carrying too much. Sometimes overstimulation feels like emptiness, like you're slightly disconnected from your own reactions, as if joy, curiosity, or excitement are muted. That can be confusing, because emptiness doesn't look like overload. But when the nervous system stays on for too long, it protects itself by dulling sensation, not shutting down completely, just enough to survive the input. So instead of feeling overwhelmed, you feel flat. Instead of anxious, you feel distant. Instead of stressed, you feel tired in a way sleep doesn't touch. This isn't a personal failure, it's a signal, and understanding that signal matters. Because without that understanding, it's easy to misread what you're experiencing. And that misunderstanding is where a lot of unnecessary self-blame begins. Stay with this. There's more clarity ahead. This is often the point where people start turning inward with frustration. Because when something feels wrong, the instinct is to rest, to take a break, to pull back and recover. And maybe you've tried that. You slept more. You took time off. You distracted yourself with shows, scrolling, noise. But when you came back, the feeling was still there. That dull pressure, that sense of being behind yourself. And when rest doesn't work the way it's supposed to, the story changes. It stops being about exhaustion and starts being about you. Why isn't this helping? Why can't I reset like other people? Why do I still feel off? That's where the belief forms, quietly, persistently. Maybe something inside me is damaged, but overstimulation isn't cured by collapse. It isn't relieved by more input, even pleasant input. and it doesn't always respond to sleep alone. When the system has been carrying too much for too long, it doesn't know how to fully power down, so rest can feel shallow, incomplete. That doesn't mean you're failing at rest. It means rest hasn't addressed the actual strain yet. There's nothing defective about that, and you don't need to force a solution right now. Understanding comes first. This is where things get confusing for a lot of people, because the words start blurring together. Burnout, numbness, overwhelm. And when you don't know which one you're in, it's easy to assume the worst. Burnout sounds severe. Numbness sounds alarming. Overstimulation sounds too mild to explain how heavy this feels. So the mind keeps searching for the right label, as if naming it perfectly will make it go away. But these states overlap more than we're taught to believe. They bleed into each other. They borrow symptoms. Overstimulation can lead to numbness. Numbness can look like burnout. Burnout can start as quiet, constant overload. The difference isn't a moral one. It's not about strength or weakness. It's about duration and capacity. How long input has exceeded recovery. How little space the system has had to settle. None of these states mean you failed. None of them mean you're permanently changed. They describe a condition, not a character flaw. And even if the word isn't perfect, the experience is real. It deserves understanding, not judgment. You don't have to diagnose yourself to deserve relief. You don't have to explain it perfectly to be allowed care. Just knowing that this confusion has a reason can loosen the grip a little. Stay with me. The real cost of constant input isn't always stress. It's the absence of landing. Your system moves from one thing to the next, one sound, one thought, one expectation. Even when nothing is actively wrong, there's no true pause, no moment where everything settles at once. Notifications pull you outward, responsibilities pull you forward. Noise fills the background without asking. And even the things you enjoy can add to the load. Conversations, information, entertainment, not because they're bad, but because there's no space between them. The nervous system needs moments with no demand, no decision, no reaction required. When those moments don't exist, the body stays ready, alert, braced. Over time, that readiness becomes a baseline. And living in a constant baseline of readiness is exhausting. You might notice your shoulders rarely drop. Your breath stays shallow without you realizing. Your thoughts jump ahead before the present moment finishes. This isn't a failure to cope. It's a system that hasn't been allowed to settle. And when a system never lands, it doesn't recharge. It just keeps going. Understanding this isn't about blame, it's about accuracy. Because when you see the real cost, you stop accusing yourself of imaginary flaws, and that shift matters more than it seems. This is where a different belief can begin to take shape. Not loudly, not all at once, just gently. What if nothing is wrong with you? What if the fatigue, the flatness, the irritability aren't signs of damage, but signs of responsiveness? A system that reacts to pressure is not defective. It's sensitive to load. Overstimulation isn't who you are. It's a state your system has been living in. And states can change. That doesn't mean you suddenly feel better. It doesn't mean everything eases right now. It simply means the story shifts from I'm broken to I've been carrying too much for too long. You don't have to force optimism into that idea. You don't have to turn it into hope. Just hold it neutrally. Nothing about you needs to be fixed before you're allowed care. Nothing about you needs to be different to be worthy of rest. Even recognizing this can feel unfamiliar, because self-blame becomes a habit when answers are missing. but habits can loosen, and you don't have to rush that process. We're almost at the quiet part. You don't need to resolve anything tonight. You don't need a plan. You don't need a breakthrough. You don't need to feel better before you rest. If your system has been overstimulated, the most healing thing at first is permission. Permission to stop interpreting every feeling as a problem. Permission to exist without improvement. You can let your shoulders soften a little, not on purpose, just by not holding them up so tightly. You can let this moment be quieter than the ones before it. Even if the noise doesn't fully fade, even if the thoughts still wander. Nothing bad happens if you don't push through right now. Nothing is lost if you slow internally. You're not behind. You're not failing at being human. You've been responding to too much for too long. And the fact that you're here, listening, noticing, that already tells a different story than the one you've been telling yourself. If you want, you can leave a single word below that matches how this moment feels, not for anyone else, just as a marker. You can also return here whenever things feel loud again. This space will still be calm. For now, let this be enough.